Elliot had always dreamt of flying in an aeroplane. As his family couldn't afford a holiday abroad, he had wondered what it would be like to view the world from thousands of metres up in the air. But after 5 minutes of flying by Constellation, Elliot swore his feet would never leave the ground again. He knew Virgo had saved his life, but now Elliot worried he was in danger of losing it again as his body spun wildly, climbing even higher in the blinding glare of Virgo's constellation. He felt like a sock in a tumble dryer, a sock that was about to throw up its breakfast. Just as Elliot lost all sense of which end was up, his flight came to an abrupt halt. "What are you trying to?" he began, before being dumped on a pile of surprisingly firm cloud as Virgo's constellation flowed elegantly down to reform as her physical self. "Ow, you didn't have to drop me." "You're lucky I didn't drop you halfway across the Aegean Sea," said Virgo, running her fingers through her long silver hair. "You're heavier than you look, and you're welcome, by the way." "You too," Elliot replied, trying dizzily to stand. "Where are we?" "This is Elysium," Virgo announced grandly. "Welcome to my home." His vision still a little blurred from the flight, Elliot took a moment to adjust to the sunlit scene. But when he did, he saw he was in the most perfectly beautiful place. The bright sunshine beamed down on the cloud meadow in which they stood, which was filled with fruit trees straining under laden branches. In the distance one way, Elliot could make out a flawless glass pyramid that sparkled on the horizon like a huge diamond. In the other direction, a river babbled along the edge of the clouds, dropping into a waterfall that shimmered with refracted rainbow light. "Wow," whispered Elliot as he took in the paradise before him. So there really were other worlds. He found the thought strangely comforting. "I'd better get to the council chamber," said Virgo, gesturing towards the pyramid. "They need to know what you did." "What I did?" Elliot exclaimed indignantly. "I saved your stupid shiny head." "Which wouldn't have been in danger if you hadn't set the prisoner free. I told you not to." Elliot knew that there was an excellent answer to that point. He just didn't have it right then. "Stay here," Virgo commanded. "You can't tell me what to do," said Elliot defiantly. "No mortal has ever been to Elysium," said Virgo. "I need to handle this delicate situation with my expert tact and diplomacy. So stay here, or I'll pick you up in my constellation and drop you, your curiously stubborn head." "What will they do?" Elliot conceded. "Something brilliant," Virgo said breezily. "The Zodiac Council has been supporting the immortal community for 2,000 years. This probably happens all the time. They'll have a contingency plan. It'll all be perfectly fine." "You did what?" Pisces shrieked over the commotion in the chamber as the Zodiac Council erupted with outrage. "Well, it was a bit of an accident," Virgo began, every eye in the room making her feel only 600 years old. "You see, Elliot wasn't supposed to be in the prison." "You weren't supposed to be in the prison," snapped Cancer. "You were supposed to be ordering paper clips." "I know, but..." Virgo couldn't quite find the words. She was finding it unusually difficult to make herself and sound completely right. This wasn't going as perfectly as she'd hoped. "You are a young, inexperienced counsellor," yelled Ares, his curled horns unfurling in fury. "In one day you've disobeyed express orders not to visit Earth, released prisoner 42, and missed the final stationery order deadline for this month. Explain yourself." As Virgo tried to justify what happened since she left Elysium, she spotted Elliot sneaking into the chamber and hiding behind a marble pillar. She had told him to wait outside. Was the mortal child incapable of following any rules? "Whatever happened?" she started uncertainly. "I felt that the most sensible course of action was to return here immediately and file a full report. I used my initiative." "Shame you didn't use your brain," shouted Scorpio, accidentally squashing a banana into Leo's eyes with his pincers. "Well, there's only one thing for it," said Pisces. "We have to follow protocol." There was a long pause as the council silently approved the decision. "Deny all knowledge," shouted Aquarius, raising his jug in salute. "Precisely," agreed Pisces. "Our official line is that we know nothing of prisoner 42's escape." "Excellent," said Libra, weighing 2 muffins on her scales. "And I table a motion that we deny all knowledge of denying all knowledge." "Seconded," said Sagittarius, firing a pencil at a dartboard. "This council knows nothing." Agreed, roared Leo. After all, we have a reputation to uphold as a council that knows nothing about anything. Sounds like an excellent course of action, said Virgo, relieved that the situation was back under control. I'm sure it's of no consequence. After all, how dangerous can this Thanatos be? Ooh, chocolate muffins. The air was nearly sucked out of the chamber as the councillors gasped as one. What did you say? Boomed Taurus. I said chocolate muffins, although I really must cut down, said Virgo. Now, about our paperclip supplier. Thanatos, said Capricorn, her horns pricked up in anticipation. Where did you hear that? Oh, it was nothing, just the prisoner's name, sighed Virgo, thumbing a stationery catalogue. He is obviously suboptimal. Claims to be the king of the demons, more like king of the dodos. You must be mistaken, said Pisces dismissively. Clearly your incompetence extends to your hearing. Virgo knew she should leave well enough alone. She had escaped serious reprimand and the whole matter could now be put behind her. But being right was far more important. So, Pisces, pardon me, but my hearing is perfect, she ventured. The prisoner clearly stated his name was Thanatos. That is impossible, said the Gemini twins concedingly. Why? Said Virgo. Because, child, said Pisces, Thanatos has been dead for over 2,000 years. He seemed thoroughly alive this morning, said Virgo. Who is he? Haven't you studied our history? Asked Aquarius. Yes, of course, said Virgo, finding it strange to say something that wasn't actually true. Elliot's head poked around the pillar. Virgo mouthed to him to move out of sight, but he replied with a mortal hand gesture she didn't entirely understand. Thanatos was... Whatever are you doing, child? Asked Pisces, noticing Virgo's strange head movements as she communicated with Elliot. Nothing, just some exercises, she replied, noting it was slightly easier to say something untrue this time. As I was saying, Thanatos was the king of the demons, explained Pisces. You know that, at least? Of course I do, said Virgo, embracing this curious new skill. She had no idea what Pisces was talking about. In all her years on the Zodiac Council, she'd barely been allowed to finish a sentence, let alone ask a question. For the first time, she realised this could be an advantage. That's right, it's all coming back now, she said. Thanatos was the son of Erebus, demon of darkness, said Capricorn. When Zeus became king of the gods, he made his friend Erebus the king of the demons. Absolutely. Erebus, said Virgo, authoritatively. Wasn't he the one who repaid Zeus's kindness by trying to overthrow him? Snorted Taurus. Erebus wanted to rule the world himself, but he was no match for the king of the gods. Zeus took his Cardia and slew him in the noble combat. Of course, said Virgo. But then Thanatos took his father's place as demon king. Years later, he too craved Zeus's power, so he challenged him, said Sagittarius. But like father, like son, he was unequal to the task. Zeus killed him too. Absolutely, said Virgo. And so the only trace that remains of Thanatos is his Chaos Stones, said Leo. Indeed, said Virgo. After all, the Chaos Stones control the elements, bleated Aries. Earth, air, water, and fire. They were a gift from Chaos herself, Erebus' mother. But Thanatos abused the power of the stones, using them to terrorize the mortals with earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and infernos. Thanatos was determined to enslave mortal kind and rule the world. But Zeus won the Chaos Stones when he defeated Thanatos and used them to rid the realms of all the demons before he retired. Took their Cardia and exterminated the lot. And good riddance, explained Pisces. So you see, child, it is simply not possible for Thanatos to be prisoner 42. Hang on a minute, said Elliot, emerging from behind the pillar to the astonishment of everyone but Virgo. Elliot, spat Virgo, I told you to stay outside. Elliot, asked Libra, this is the mortal child. Yes, I was going to... You've brought a mortal to Elysium, roared Leo. Are you out of your mind? No, you see, Thanatos, prisoner 42, was about to kill him, so I rescued him in my constellation, said Virgo proudly. Haven't you read your contract? Cried Capricorn incredulously. Council members aren't allowed to reveal their constellations to a mortal. I told you so, huffed Virgo to Elliot. No mortal has ever set foot in Elysium, shouted Cancer. Well, it looks like I picked a good time to start, said Elliot, exchanging curious looks with Pisces. Didn't you just say that Thanatos wanted to enslave mortal kind? We know nothing about that, said Libra dismissively. You just said he did. No, she didn't, said Capricorn. She didn't say anything. So you're denying that the chubby golden sheep over there... How dare you, snorted Aries. I'm a ram. Apologies, said Elliot. So you're denying that the chubby golden ram over there just said that there might be a death demon on the loose who could attack mortals with earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and infernos? No. Technically, he'd need his chaos stones back, and then he could attack mortals with earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and infernos, said one Gemini twin, earning a slap from the other. Not that we have any knowledge of that. So you look after the immortal community, but when something serious happens, you're not going to do anything. We are a council, explained Taurus. It's not our job to actually do anything. We just have to file the correct paperwork. Thanatos is dead, and even if he weren't, it's not up to us to wage war on a vengeful death of demons, added Pisces. Not that there are any of those. And if there were, we'd know nothing about them. So this is your perfect system, Elliot said to Virgo, who had sunk under the table with embarrassment. This makes you so much better than mortals. All eyes turned to Virgo, all the top of her head. Elliot had a point. She needed to stand her ground. The child is right, she finally squeaked from beneath the table. If this prisoner 42 is Thanatos, and if he is as dangerous as you say he is, shouldn't we at least try to recapture him? If Thanatos is as dangerous as we say he is, perhaps you shouldn't have let him go in the first place, shouted Libra. Not that he is dangerous, or even exists. I know nothing about it. Well, on behalf of all mortals, you've been a huge help, said Elliot, turning to leave. So if you could beam me back to jeopardise my mortal life, I'd be very grateful. How do I get out of here? Virgo can show you the way. She's just leaving, said Pisces. I am, asked Virgo, poking back up over the table. Yes, you are, said Leo. You're absolutely right. This is your mess, and you need to clean it up before words get out that an immortal prisoner is on the loose. Not that he is. Restore the mortal child to his home and do not return to Elysium until prisoner 42 is safely back in his prison. Not that he's out of it. How am I going to do that, said Virgo. Your problem, Pisces pronounced. Virgo of the Zodiac Council and guardian of the stationery cupboard. You are to return to Earth and sort out the situation you have created, but not before ordering some more printer ink. To ensure that you cannot risk any further exposure of the immortal world, the Council hereby forbids you from using any of your constellation powers of pain of suspension. What? Shrieked Virgo. You suspend me from the Council? No, child, said Pisces grimly. We'd suspend you from immortality. You could lose your cardia for this. But you can't do that. I won't let you, yelled Virgo, clutching the necklace at her throat. Yes, we can, and yes, you will, said Cancer, pulling a huge leather-bound volume from the bookshelf with her pincers. Here it is. Cancer handed the volume to Virgo. What's this? Asked Elliot. The sacred code, said Virgo grimly. Our rules. During the reign of the Olympians, certain immortal behaviours were getting a little excessive, said Aquarius. When the Zodiac Council took charge, we decided to impose a little order. We made all immortals swear on the sticks that they would abide by the laws of the sacred code, explained Sagittarius, including Virgo. Elliot peered over Virgo's shoulder to read the first page, which was covered in pencil notations, post-it notes, and rude pictures in the margins. The Sacred Code, 12,349th edition. Number 1. All immortals have the right to ambrosia. B. Immortals cannot break mortal laws. 7. Immortals cannot herd giraffes on a Tuesday. 13. Immortals cannot keep mortal money. F2. Immortals cannot wear socks with sandals. 39.4. Immortals cannot break an oath. XY. Immortals cannot push cotton buds too far into their ears. All rules subject to change with any or no notice. Turn to page 4,329, said Cancer smugly. Virgo reefed through thousands more pages of rules and read aloud. Rule 985. Take away the first number you thought of. The Zodiac Council reserves the right to confiscate a cardia from any immortal who behaves like a proper donut. You see, said Pisces, so there you have it. Virgo, your task is clear. Recapture the prisoner without using your constellation powers, or you will lose your immortality forever. Chapter 10, Plain Sailing. Elliot expected something incredibly dramatic to happen when Virgo was banned from her powers. He waited for the sparks to fly, for her body to be beamed up in a ray of light before being cast to the ground, a broken shadow of her starry self. But in fact, she only had to sign a few forms and hand over the keys to her stationery cupboard. Elliot didn't know what to say as they walked away across the clouds. "I'm sorry you're in trouble," he finally offered. "The council has spoken," said Virgo sadly. "And the council is always right." "A right bunch of... It's my fault. If I'd have obeyed the rules, none of this would have happened. Everything was perfect before." "So why did you leave?" "Because I wanted to experience a different perfect, that's all. I never thought it would come to this. Look, I'm sorry about your problems, and I'm glad you saved my life and everything, but I really need to get home to Mum. Let's get into your Wizzy Starball thing and get back to the farm." "There is no Wizzy Starball thing now," Virgo sighed. "You heard them. I can't use my constellation powers, although I take my cardia, and I'll just become a pathetic, simple, pointless mortal, just like you." "Sounds terrible," said Elliot. They came to the beautiful river that lapped gently at the banks of the clouds. Virgo pursed her lips to whistle, but all that came out of her mouth was a shower of spit. "Ugh, gross," grumbled Elliot, wiping it off with his t-shirt. "What are you doing? Hailing public transport. Ugh. Here, let me." Elliot put his thumb and forefinger into his mouth and let out a perfect whistle. He and Mum had spent hours practicing it, along with loads of other useful tricks, including pickpocketing, semaphore, starting a fire, and burping the alphabet. "Try again," said Virgo impatiently. "This is so archaic." But before Elliot could give another blast, he was knocked flying by a huge wave that suddenly burst out of the river. As he spluttered and choked, Elliot mopped the wet hair from his eyes to see what had caused this unexpected tsunami. "At last," said Virgo, who was completely dry, "it's here." Rocked by its own waves in the middle of the river was a long wooden boat. At the prow was a carving of a ferocious lion, and at the stern a serpent's winding tail. A pair of wooden oars balanced the boat on the river, and a black sail hung from the tall mast, concealing the identity of the sailor. "Hello, Charon," yelled Virgo. "Room for two?" The black sail was drawn aside, and Elliot tried not to stare at the individual before him. The man, if that's what he was deathly white, almost transparent. His stringy yellow hair hung limply down to his chin, and a pair of pale grey eyes stared out of their dark sockets. His short figure was swathed in a rough brown robe, his dirty, veiny hands jutting from their sleeves. Charon raised his finger and pointed straight at Elliot's heart. "Come hither, mortal," he said in a shaky, high-pitched voice, "if you dare to ride the ship of death." Elliot decided that he didn't dare at all. "Don't be ridiculous, Charon," snapped Virgo. "Whatever do you mean, Lady Virgo?" trembled Charon, shifting awkwardly in the boat. "You sound like you've sat on a mouse. Use your real voice, for goodness sake." "All right, darling, you got me," chortled Charon, several octaves lower. "Sorry, mate, don't normally come north of the river. The tourists love all that stuff. Hop in." Elliot waited for Charon to whip off his disguise, but it appeared that the boatman was unfortunate enough to really look that way. He tentatively walked up the gangplank, and Charon assumed his position at the oars. "Welcome aboard, mate," said Charon, with something that was presumably a smile. "I'm Charon, proprietor of Quick Sticks Cabs. You won't wait an eternity for us." "Made that up myself." "Well done," said Elliot uncertainly, taking his place on a narrow bench next to a particularly pungent sandwich. "We need to get back to Elliot's farm. It's..." Virgo looked at Elliot for instructions. "You tell him. Charon can find anyone or anything." "Done the eternal knowledge," said Charon proudly, tapping his head. "I can get you anywhere. Home farm, Little Mopbury, Wiltshire. England, the earth," said Elliot, unsure how much detail an immortal cab driver needed. "What river's it on?" asked Charon. "Near the Avon," said Elliot. "Righto, we'll take the Severn. The wise murder this time of day. Hold on, and off we go." And with an almighty tug on the oars, Charon eased the boat away from the bank and started along the glistening water. It was a nice change of pace after a hectic morning, although Elliot was worried that Mum had been on her own for too long. He hadn't even made her lunch, and if she went looking for him. "Excuse me, Charon, how long will it take, please?" he asked the oarsman. "2 shakes of a sphinx's tail," Charon assured him. "We'll have you home for lunch." "And how exactly are we going to row through the sky?" asked Elliot casually. "We're on the River Styx," said Virgo. "The Styx?" said Elliot. "The thing you swear your oaths on?" "Yes," said Virgo. "It's a sacred river. If you break an oath sworn on the Styx, you lose your cardia. Then you spend a year unable to speak or move and are denied any nectar or ambrosia. For the next 9 years, no immortal can speak to you, and then you are banished from immortal society to be a lonely and desolate outcast until you die. It's also a nightmare trying to get to the library card," said Charon. "The Styx is the boundary between Elysium and Earth," Virgo continued. "All the rivers on the Earth run into at some point just below the Earth's surface, making it a very convenient way for immortals to get around unnoticed. Think of the world like a dirty great onion," Charon chipped. "Elysium is like the skin circling all around it above the clouds. The next realm is in the Earth. You know all about that one. Inside that you have asphodel fields, then the underworld. Each realm is reached by crossing a river. They run like a corkscrew through the world, and Charon is the only way to move between them," said Virgo. "And not everyone can go everywhere," said Charon. "Apart from me, and constellations, of course, Miss Virgo. All other immortals have restrictions," said Virgo smugly. "Gods aren't allowed up into the underworld, elementals can't visit Elysium. Accessing a forbidden realm costs an immortal their cardia." "Why can't everyone just go where they want?" asked Elliot. "Don't be ridiculous," snorted Virgo. "Because then everyone would want to live in the best places." "So," said Elliot, "why can't they?" "Of course, it's all a conspiracy." "Oh, don't start, Charon," Virgo huffed. "Not everything is a conspiracy." "That's what they want you to believe," whispered Charon, tapping the side of his nose. "But I'm in the know." "You're in cloud cuckoo land, Charon," said Virgo, with a shake of her silver head. "No, I'm not," said the oarsman defensively. "Besides, that's 637 miles due west, straight through the Northern Lights and second left after Dorking. Now, we've all been fed a big pile of centaur droppings over the years. Take the creation story. If you really think that Uranus..." Elliot zoned Charon out and looked over at the Virgo staring mournfully out of the boat. "What are you going to do?" he asked her. "You heard them. I have to recapture prisoner 42. "How?" "I've no idea," said Virgo heavily. "And Theseus slaying the Minotaur? Do me a favour," Charon scoffed. "That boy couldn't win a food fight." "Tell me something," Elliot began. "If prisoner 42 isn't a demon, why did he have their cardia?" "Maybe it was dirty," muttered Virgo. "I don't know. You heard Pisces. There's no way that prisoner 42 could be Thanatos. He's dead." "No, he's not," announced Charon suddenly. "Why'd you say that?" asked Elliot. "He's talking rubbish. Have you not studied our history?" said Virgo grandly. "My mum says history is only what the winners wrote down," said Elliot. "Hold on a mo. We're at Earth Junction," said Charon, pulling over the riverbank. "Got some more punters to pick up." Until that moment, Elliot thought that the strangest passengers he'd ever seen were on a London bus. He had read about some of the creatures he now saw. There were 2 young goblins sniggering as they blew bubblegum into a centaur's tail, while half a man, half goat, Elliot remembered this was a satyr, was annoying as an elderly fairy by playing heavy metal music on his panpipes. "Do you mind?" the fairy huffed, pointing to a sign with crossed-out panpipes on the mast. "Whatevs," muttered the satyr, as he plugged some headphones into the pipes and returned to his thrash panpipe solo. "Ugh, elementals," Virgo tutted disapprovingly under her breath. The boat pulled away from the shore, and Charon regained his easy rhythm with the oars. "So, Thanatos," he went on plainly. "He's alive, all right, must be." "What are you talking about?" said a weary Virgo. "Now listen, I'm as neutral as Magnolia living in a living room in Switzerland. I don't play for any of the teams, see?" Charon held out his cardia, which was made of glass. "I get on fine with all sides, and none of their powers work on neutrals, so I can do what I like," he said. "But if you believe that Zeus killed Thanatos, you're blinder than a cyclops with an eye patch. And Charon, you are as full of poop as King Augeas' stables," Virgo scoffed. "I don't know what happened," said Charon, "but I'd bet my 11th toe it was something dodgy. Back in the day, I used to ferry the souls of the dead up to the underworld. Mortals and immortals. Made a tidy living. The dead used to be buried with a coin in their mouth to pay my fare. No one does that anymore. I blame contactless. There was a kerfuffle at the back of the boat as the centaur put his legs on the seat next to the fairy. Do you mind? She said haughtily, nodding towards another sign saying, please keep your hooves off the seats. So where did you take Thanatos? Asked Elliot. That's my point, Charon insisted. I didn't. I escorted every dead soul in those days, including Erebus after Zeus killed him, but I never saw Thanatos, and if he's out, he'll be heading straight for his chaos stones. He loves them like a dung beetle loves diarrhea. What are they like? Asked Elliot. Well, they're small black beetles that like dung, said Charon. The chaos stones, said Elliot. Oh, them, said Charon. Cool, they're a sight. The four most beautiful jewels you'll see. The firestone is a boundless sapphire, the waterstone a deep ruby red, the air stone a beautiful emerald, and the earth stone a brilliant diamond. Hang on, said Elliot, picturing the stones. They're all the wrong colours. Chaos, Thanatos' gran, who created the stones at the dawn of the universe, was an almighty goddess with the power to produce day and night, explained Charon. Unfortunately, the old dear was as colourblind and a short-sighted bat in sunglasses. If you control the stones, you control the elements, not to mention becoming as rich as King Midas, before he invested all of his wealth in seafront property in Atlantis. Elliot's ears pricked up. Rich? How? He asked, trying to sound casual. Is that the earth stone? Said Charon. Think about it. If you control the earth, you can find oil, gold, buried treasure. You'd be minted in a minute. And where are they now? Asked Elliot more keenly. Zeus must have them, said Charon, unless he lost them in one of his divorces. A mobile phone rang through the boat. The fairy carefully opened her handbag and gently pulled out the phone. She elegantly cleared her throat and answered the call. Hello, she yelled at the top of her lungs. I can't talk now. I'm on the ship of death. Do you mind? Said all the other passengers in unison, drawing her attention to the sign showing a fairy shouting down a mobile phone in a prohibited red circle. Elliot's mind was whirring. A magical diamond that could help make him instantly rich. A diamond that could help him pay off the debt to save his home. A diamond that was a diamond. Now that was a diamond he needed to find. So Zeus is still alive? Elliot asked. Of course he is. Duh, said Virgo. And whoever the prisoner is, if you're going to need some help catching him. You offering? Said Virgo condescendingly. Maybe, said Elliot, a vision dancing in his head of the top-of-the-range games console he was going to buy with the treasure the Earthstone would reveal. But you also need someone with experience, someone who knows Prisoner 42, someone who has caught him before. Virgo looked as though she'd been hit by a thunderbolt. Oh my gods, she gasped. Zeus! He imprisoned him the first time. He can do it again. That's the best idea I've ever had. Excuse me, said Elliot. Charon, where can I find Zeus? Asked Virgo. Haven't seen him for a day or two, but Zeus doesn't blow his nose without his son Hermes bringing him the hanky. Charon put in. This time of day, Hermes will be in the Cafe Hero in the asphodel fields, having one of their fancy coffees. Then let's go, beamed Virgo. Wait a minute, I need to get home, said Elliot. We're coming up to the junction with the Avon, said Charon. Am I taking you home, or are we going to find Hermes? Will it take long? Asked Elliot, weighing up leaving Mum alone against the prospect of finding the Earthstone. Not at all, said Virgo, finally brightening up. We'll have Thanatos back in prison by tea time. This is all going to work out perfectly well. Well, said Charon to Elliot. To the asphodel fields, said Elliot, reassuring himself that today was no different from leaving Mum on a school day. This was his best chance of saving home farm. We've got some gods to find. The boat continued its descent along the Styx, the bright colours of the earth starting to blur, as if someone was rubbing them out with a giant eraser. The scenery faded slowly away until there was nothing but grey, foggy cloud. The boat sailed into a long, gloomy tunnel. Next stop, announced Charon, as they came to a halt underground. Acheron Junction. All right. Here for the asphodel fields. Please ensure you take all personal belongings and limbs with you. Thanks, Elliot. No problem, said Charon. He looked down at the abacus at the front of the boat. That'll be 3,000 drachma, he said cheerily. Virgo looked at Elliot, who looked blankly back. What? He said. Well, I haven't got any money, she said. I've never seen it before. You'll have to pay him. I'm sorry, said Elliot to Charon, rummaging around in his pocket and producing the £3.76 he'd stashed there earlier in the day, and a random button. This is all I have. Charon's eyes became the size of saucers. Wow, he whispered. Can I really? Of course, said Elliot, trying not to wince at the thought of losing his entire week's spending money. But as Charon withdrew his hand, Elliot saw the boatman had only taken the button. Mortal treasure, he said. I collect this stuff. I've not seen a blue one before. Are you sure? Said Elliot, uncomfortable at cheating the man who might have just solved all his financial worries. Oh, I'm not trying to rip you off, mate. That includes the tip, said Charon, still staring at his fare. Well, great. Keep the change, said Elliot, bemused for the umpteenth time that day. And here, said Charon, fishing around in his pocket, producing a small piece of parchment. Here's my card. If you ever need me, just drop this in the nearest water and I'll come and find you. See you, Charon, said Virgo, as she and Elliot walked into the gloom. To our kids, he said, pulling out a newspaper, and the sandwich with something horrible wriggling inside it. Zodiac Council pledges more free Centaur schools, he read on the front page. Believe that, you'll believe anything. A short while later, a card floated down the river to announce a new job. Charon picked it out of the murky water. Well, I'll be, he said, taking up the oars in his gnarled hands. Charon rowed back along the Styx, taking the river Avon, turning towards Stonehenge. A few moments later, he saw his passenger lurking in the cold fog that hung over the riverbank. Hello, Charon, came a voice. Blimey, said Charon. Your ears must have been burning. I was only just talking about you. Long time no see. Too long, said Thanatos, taking his seat as the boat pulled away from the bank. But I can promise you this, you'll be seeing a lot more of me from now on.